This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Stocking the cabinet. Good afternoon. Welcome to the broadcast. Confirmation hearings are underway now for President-elect Trump's cabinet picks. First out of the gates, former Fox News host Pete Hegseth. He's appearing today before the Senate Armed Services Committee.
And to all the troops and veterans watching and here in the room, Navy SEALs, Green Berets, soldiers, pilots, sailors, Marines, Gold Stars, and more, officers, enlisted, black and white, young and old, men and women, all Americans, all warriors. This hearing is for you.
Hegseth's been tapped to serve as Secretary of Defense in the second Trump administration. But Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has his doubts about Hegseth, nominated to lead the largest agency in the United States government.
Is someone with Pete Hegseth's alleged history really the kind of person we want at the helm? Is that really in the best interests of American safety?
Alabama Republican Tommy Tuberville says Hegseth's pedigree is just what the Pentagon needs.
We don't need a general from the Pentagon. We've tried that. We need a drill sergeant. He will be ripped. He will be demeaned. He will be talked about, but we're going to get him across the finish line.
In his opening statement, Hegseth vowed to be a change agent for the Pentagon and vowed to restore a warrior culture to the Defense Department. New York Governor Kathy Hochul will be proposing today free tuition at SUNY schools for students who pursue degrees in high-demand fields. The Democrat will make the case for free college during this afternoon's State of the State speech. We'll have more on the governor's big speech coming up later in the broadcast. High winds are back in Southern California, and it's threatening to set back the fight against the wildfires. Reporter Morgan Chesky.
The National Weather Service creating their highest fire threats now through noon on Wednesday. Fire crews busy trying to mop up hotspots, and investigators are trying to hone in on the cause of these massive fires that continue to burn.
24 deaths blamed on what's expected to be the nation's worst ever natural disaster. Tens of thousands of evacuees have been told to stay away.
People are saying, I just want to go look at my house and I want to see what's left. We know that, but we have people literally looking for the remains of your neighbors.
L.A. Sheriff Robert Luna says police have arrested more than 40 people for looting in evacuation zones. Former L.A. Sheriff Alex Villanueva.
Unfortunately, a lot more got away than the ones that got arrested because the size of the looting, it's substantial, and the lack of law enforcement personnel on the ground is very noticeable.
President-elect Trump says he will visit Southern California next week, soon after taking office. The lake effect snow machine continues to churn out impressive snow totals in the snow belt south and east of the Great Lakes. 1 to 2 feet of fresh accumulation is possible by tomorrow in parts of Oswego, Oneida, Erie, Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, and Wyoming counties. Word today that a ceasefire deal is imminent in the Middle East. More than 30 hostages held by Hamas would be let go in the first phase of this 3-phase plan to wind down the war with Israel. Correspondent Richard Engel.
They've never been closer to a ceasefire deal with Hamas. That for the first time, they're really getting into the specifics. Now, this is not a one and done deal. Hamas would not just release the hostages and the war is over. It takes place over time in stages.
International security expert Dr. Rebecca Grant says this deal would have never happened if Donald Trump wasn't reelected.
This deal is close because of the pressure that President-elect Trump has put on Hamas. He really deserves a great deal of credit for breaking the logjam.
The ceasefire calls for Israeli troops to remain in Gaza until all the hostages are freed. The Justice Department has released the Jack Smith report on the president-elect's election interference case. Legal analyst Lori Levinson.
What we'll have here is a pretty clear record of what this investigation went on to show. And Donald Trump is sure to still claim that it's an unfair investigation, but the details are laid out in this very lengthy report.
Former federal prosecutor Andrew Cherkasky.
Well, I think politics was most clearly behind this. Jack Smith really took great efforts throughout the report to talk about himself, and it was a very dedicated lawfare effort to find some way to get something to stick with him, and that failed entirely.
Jack Smith dropped his criminal case against Trump after he won the 2024 election. The special prosecutor who investigated Hunter Biden is criticizing President Biden. David Weiss calls the president pardoning his son Hunter a miscarriage of justice. Biden insisted for months he would not pardon Hunter before he did exactly that back in December. The president gives a farewell address to the nation tomorrow night, a primetime speech from the Oval Office. Republican Congressman Corey Mills says Biden will go down in history as one of the worst presidents ever.
Biden inflation has absolutely crippled the American people. Tens of millions of illegals have come across our borders. We had the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan that cost us 13 brave heroes. That's the real Biden administration.
The president's speech is set for 8 p.m. Wednesday night. Melania Trump admits she does not always agree with her husband when it comes to policy issues.
I gave him my advice, and sometimes he listens, sometimes he doesn't, and that's okay.
The soon-to-be First Lady spoke recently to Fox News.
Maybe some people, they see me as just a wife of the president, but I'm standing on my own 2 feet, independent. I have my own thoughts. I have my own yes and no.
Mrs. Trump vows to expand her Be Best campaign in her husband's second term. That campaign focuses on social media's influence on the mental health of children. Carrie Underwood, Kid Rock, Jason Aldean, Rascal Flatts, Lee Greenwood, and the Village People will all perform at Trump's inauguration next week. The Village People, who made the song YMCA famous, said in a statement today, "We know this won't make some of you happy. However, we believe that music is to be performed without regard to politics," end quote. Still to come on the Noon Report, a Tuesday edition. Insurance hikes after the wildfires. Big speech time for Governor Hochul, and top cop steps down in Buffalo.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams, calling for some sunny breaks and some lake flakes this afternoon. The forecast is coming up in 10.
All right, Kevin, we'll see you then. Let's check some of the stories making news across New York and Pennsylvania. We'll begin in Albany, where New York Governor Kathy Hochul is about to take the wraps off her fourth State of the State address. Democrat James Skoufis.
I look forward to what more she has to say, but the early themes have been on point.
Skoufis supports the governor's affordability agenda, which includes expanded tax credits and housing reforms. Republicans argue Democratic policies are what caused the affordability crisis in the first place.
The policies that one-party Democrat rule in New York are setting New York on the wrong path, and New Yorkers know it.
Senate Minority Leader Rob Orr.
The state of New York's hand is so far in your pocket that we're up to our elbow at this point. So we need to get out of there.
When it comes to new taxes and fees, even Democrats like James Skoufis admit they have their limits.
I am going to be carte blanche opposed to any talk about increasing taxes and new fees that hit the middle class, the working class, basically anyone that's not a millionaire.
Hochul's climate change agenda includes cap and invest, which makes energy companies pay more for the greenhouse gases they produce. Republicans fear that will drive up energy costs for everyone. Pennsylvania Democrats are backpedaling when it comes to their insistence that the Commonwealth wean itself off of fossil fuels.
I think we need to look at all the options in front of us when we talk about different ways to produce energy.
That is House Energy Committee Chair Elizabeth Fiedler. She says a pro-energy policy must include oil and gas exploration.
It's about making sure that people can afford to pay their bills and to keep their lights on.
Senate President Kim Ward says once President-elect Trump takes office,
our energy is going to be freed up. We're not going to have those overbearing, burdensome regulations.
Jim Welty's president of the Marcellus Shale Coalition.
Energy is where it's at, and natural gas is going to be the solution that drives the economy moving forward.
Pennsylvania, by the way, is the second leading natural gas producing state, second only to Texas. Experts are warning the insurance issues that Californians are facing in the wake of those devastating wildfires could cause problems for people in the Family Life listening area. Eventually.
Over time, as these natural disasters continue to happen and the payouts and the billions lost, the insurance companies have to spread out the premium increases across the country. So do I think it's going to be, overnight we're going to see our rates go up? No, but I think gradually over time, they're not going to ever go down.
Rochester, New York-based insurance adjuster Matthew Harding.
So I don't want people of New York to be necessarily frightened from the fires in California, but honestly, a fire can happen to anyone in any part of the country. A total loss is a total loss, whether it's hitting a whole neighborhood or just your house. So understanding what you're buying, not buying the cheapest policy on the block because you're probably not going to be covered correctly, and work with someone you trust.
Harding predicts homeowners in the Family Life listening area could see a 10% increase in their insurance rates as a result of the California wildfires. The Buffalo, New York-based Christian relief group 8 Days of Hope is hoping against hope to be able soon to send volunteers to Southern California. Founder Steve Tybor says it's just not safe right now to send anyone into the wildfires.
We've been connecting with churches and organizations both near the Eden Fire and the Palisades Fire. We have been starting to collect some resources that we can very quickly pivot. But right now, today, we can't send people in there because it's just too dangerous of a situation.
If you'd like to help California get back on its feet, check out our website, familylife.org/relief. Buffalo Police Commissioner Joseph Gramaglia has resigned. He cites a difference in policing priorities with the mayor, Chris Scanlon. Gramaglia had served as top cop in Buffalo since 2022. Free school lunches could soon be on the table for all Pennsylvania students. Here's Family Life's Brian Query.
State Senators Lindsey Williams and Judy Schwenk plan to reintroduce the Universal School Meals legislation in Pennsylvania this spring, aimed at fighting child hunger. The program would apply to all schools that participate in the National School Lunch and School Breakfast programs, not just public schools. A similar proposal in 2023 failed to make it to the governor's desk due to the price tag at the time. During the pandemic, the state provided free school meals, breakfast, and lunch to all students through the use of federal COVID emergency funding. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thank you, Brian. New food allergy legislation is in the works in Harrisburg. The bipartisan bill sets protocols for restaurants to follow. If approved, restaurants would be required to display food allergy disclaimers on their menus. They'd also have to put up educational posters about food allergies in their kitchens and provide food allergy training to all employees. 33 million Americans have some type of food allergy. A new law takes effect today. It's intended to make it easier to cancel those unwanted subscription services.
They call it click to cancel, meaning cancellation mechanisms for subscriptions must be easy to find on websites or apps and easy to enact. The U.S. government will be able to fine companies violating this rule more than $50,000 per incident.
Evan Brown reporting. Sports is next. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, the LA Rams had to move out of town to play their quote-unquote home playoff game in Arizona against the Minnesota Vikings, but that didn't seem to bother them in the least. When LA's Matthew Stafford completed a long pass on the first play from scrimmage, you just kind of had a feeling it was going to be a long night for Minnesota. It was. The Rams cruised to a 27-9 win after taking a 24-3 halftime lead. Stafford threw for 2 touchdown passes. LA's defense picked up a fumble and ran it back 57 yards for a score. Yeah, the Rams kind of dominated the Vikings. Up next for LA, they will play the Eagles for a spot in the NFC Championship game. At Madison Square Garden last night, the Detroit Pistons took down the New York Knicks 124-119. That despite 3 double-doubles from the Knicks. Jalen Brunson had 31 points and 11 assists. Karl Anthony Towns, 26 points and 12 rebounds. Josh Hart, 12 points and 14 boards. but New York Falls, they are now 26-15 on the season. Elsewhere in the NBA, the T-Wolves 120-106 winners over the Wizards. Toronto outlasted Golden State 104-101. Houston won by a bucket against the Grizzlies 120-118. The Spurs, no problem with the Lakers 126-102. And the Clippers beat the Heat 109-98. On the ice, Noah Cates netted a pair of goals to help the Flyers edge the Panthers 4-3. The Oilers blanked the Kings 1-0, and the Blackhawks dropped a 5-2 decision to Calgary. That is a look at sports.
All right, thank you, Randy. And still to come on the Noon Report, the Smith Report, the Hegseth hearings, and the winds are back in SoCal.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. If this were a movie trailer, I'd begin this commentary by saying, in a world where Dylan Mulvaney almost destroyed Bud Light. As it turns out, that 2023 incident, when a transgender activist crashed the sales of America's best-selling beer, was a turning point. Since then, we've seen a number of companies respond to the public pushback when it comes to gender ideology. And the most recent example might be the most surprising. Just a couple weeks ago, Hollywood Reporter revealed that the animation giant Pixar's new original streaming series, Win or Lose, quote, will no longer include a planned transgender storyline. A spokesperson for Disney confirmed the report, explaining, and I quote, when it comes to animated content for a younger audience, we recognize that many parents would prefer to discuss certain subjects with their children on their own terms and timeline, end quote. Well, this welcome news could not be more different than the very different tune Disney has been singing for quite a few years. Back in 2017, the director of the live-action Beauty and the Beast trumpeted its exclusively gay moment. 2022's Lightyear featured a same-sex kiss. Disney's Strange World featured a gay relationship. And of course, it's a big change from 2022 when the former CEO of Disney led an open political activist campaign against Florida's so-called Don't Say Gay bill. The CEO ultimately lost that battle along with his job. In all of those instances, there was no hesitation by Disney to push certain topics on children despite whatever their parents thought. So what's behind this about face? Perhaps it's because Disney and its studios have experienced their own Mulvaney moment. According to Hollywood Reporter, Pixar decided to remove the trans subplot in Win or Lose about the same time as major layoffs happened in that studio and in its parent company, Disney. And those cuts followed a steady lineup of box office flops, including LGBTQ themes. Ironically, at the end of the day, we may have to thank Dylan Mulvaney for this shift, at least in part. Trans activists clearly pushed too far, too fast in recent years. However, there are plenty of others that deserve mention. Billboard Chris, Riley Gaines, Ryan Anderson, Alliance Defending Freedom, Abigail Schreier, 1792 Project, and many others. Unfortunately, not in this list of courageous voices are many churches and many pastors and many Christian leaders who thought that the risk of speaking out on this particular issue would be too costly for their platform or would get in the way of the gospel. Turns out, they were the ones on the wrong side of history. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
All right, John, thank you very much. Outside we go next, Mr. Kevin Williams.
Here is your Family Life weather forecast for this afternoon. Across central and eastern Pennsylvania, clouds, occasional mixed sun, nothing more than a flurry. Elsewhere, considerable cloudiness, sunny breaks, flurries in areas of lake snow. Several inches of additional snow will accumulate in the lake belts east of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. High temperatures mid-teens to mid-20s. Lake snows will shift south a bit tonight and then back north and weaken tomorrow. Elsewhere and otherwise, partly cloudy and cold. Low tonight dropping toward 10, the high tomorrow low 20s. Thursday cloudy with a bit of snow and a high temperature in the 20s.
All right, Kevin, thank you. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm your host, Bob Price, and lots to talk about Tuesday, January 14th. Those strong Santa Ana winds are back in Southern California.
Wind's the fire boss. The hair on the back of my neck will stand up when we start witnessing winds like this that we are today.
The near hurricane force winds are bad news for firefighters battling those devastating devastating fires near L.A.
Winds combined with low humidities will keep the fire threat critical.
Altadena residents who lost property filed lawsuits against Southern California Edison, claiming the electrical company triggered the blaze. A spokesman for Edison tells us the cause of the fire remains under investigation.
Correspondent Jonathan Vigliotti says those wildfires have already killed at least 24 people and destroyed thousands of homes. Confirmation hearings got underway today for President-elect Trump's cabinet picks. Leading the charge out of the gates, this guy.
Unlike the current administration, politics should play no part in military matters. We are not Republicans. We are not Democrats. We are American warriors.
That's former Fox News host Pete Hegseth, tapped to serve as defense secretary. He's appearing before the Senate Armed Services Committee. Indiana Senator Jim Banks.
Pete will be the first Secretary of Defense from my generation, the post 9/11 generation of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. He served in both places. He has 2 Bronze Stars. And President Trump is right. We need a change agent at the Pentagon to clean up the mess of the last 4 years.
10 of Donald Trump's nominees will be facing confirmation hearings over the next 4 days. It only takes a simple majority in the Senate to confirm the cabinet picks. Hamas reportedly set to release more than 30 hostages as part of a 3-phase ceasefire deal with Israel.
The framework is the same as the proposal laid out by the president several months ago that would free hostages in phases and gradually withdraw Israeli troops from Gaza. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says it's possible to close the deal this week.
Correspondent Jared Halpern, the ceasefire calls for Israeli troops to remain in Gaza until all the hostages are freed. The release of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners is also part of the deal. The Justice Department has released Special Counsel Jack Smith's final report. It lays out Donald Trump's alleged efforts to overturn his defeat in the 2020 election. Here's legal analyst Laura Jarrett.
The president-elect fought to keep this report under wraps down to the wire. And while the facts of January 6th may be well known at this point, the special counsel has now taken us behind the scenes, documenting the scope and the scale of what it was like prosecuting one of the most powerful men in the country.
Trump blasted the report, calling it fake and Jack Smith deranged. New York Governor Kathy Hochul unveiling several new initiatives today in her State of the State speech in Albany. Scott Pringle has a preview.
Governor Hochul will detail her plan to provide free meals to all K-12 students, increase the number of child care facilities in the state, and increase the child tax credit. She's also expected to talk about restricting cell phone use in schools.
Mental health has become a real issue for teenagers, and I'm a mom, and I wanted to help.
Hochul's speech will come after a recent poll shows just 33% of voters want her reelected. Scott Pringle, New York.
The risk of developing dementia may be higher than previously thought. A new study today estimates 42% of both men and women will develop some form of dementia in their lifetime. One of the biggest reasons for this is that people are living longer. There's been a surge in winter respiratory viruses all over America. The flu, the norovirus, COVID, and RSV, all on the rise in recent weeks.
43 states are reporting high or very high flu activity. We have about 9.1 million illnesses, 110,000 hospitalizations, and 4,700 deaths so far this season. 17 of those deaths are pediatric. 6 of them happened in the last week.
NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar. Starbucks has posted a new code of conduct for all its stores. The coffee giant will now require people make a purchase before they're allowed to use the bathroom. An open door policy that had been in place since 2018 is no more. Starbucks says the change was made to better cater to the needs of its customers. You're listening to the Noon Report for Tuesday on Family Life. Welcome back to another edition of Hometown Heroes on Family Life. This week's guest is Sandy Lenehan of Shamokin, Pennsylvania. She started a new children's video series called We Steps with God. It helps get the Word of God into the hearts of young people today. Here's some of our conversation. You have produced these We Steps with God videos for children, and they've been wildly popular. What was the inspiration behind these videos?
Well, a year and a half ago, we were visiting our daughter and family, and we were amazed at our 1-year-old, how engaged he was with a YouTube program with live music and teaching, and he was interacting with it. And I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to have something like this that would point people and teach people about the truth found in God's Word?
We steps, we walk along, we learn and grow, we sing our songs, but most of all our we steps move us closer to our God.
It takes a lot to make these videos. I don't know how many of your own children or grandchildren that take part in these. Do you incorporate any of the family to help you make these?
We do have our grandchildren. I think all of our grandchildren at some place in them, just in little parts here or there. But most of the children are from our area or a group from Indiana that we have incorporated in singing the songs.
And you got a couple adults that have just amazing voices as well. These are really well-produced videos. Kind of looks like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, kind of something of that caliber, just very well produced. How many of these, Sandy, have you done, and how many more are you planning to do?
We have 4 programs up on YouTube. We wanted to build a platform about who our great God is and how sin got into the world, but we've been pointing to that promised one who's going to come. And we just released the one about that promised one about Jesus just before Christmas, 3 weeks ago. We're amazed, Bob, at how many views have gotten on this already in 3 weeks. But this is all about the life of Jesus, his birth.
We shall call his name Jesus. We shall call his name Jesus. We shall call his name Jesus. For he shall save his people from their sins.
The miracles, we talk about 5 of his I am statements. We put them to music. I tried to put to music anything with scripture and truths that will stick into the kids' minds and God can really use in their lives. And then we talk about his death and his resurrection and how children can learn to follow him. So we're real excited about this last program.
Just Google We Steps with God. It's on YouTube right now. You can watch all the videos. If you would talk us through the process of making one of these videos.
We took one of our bedrooms and turned it into a studio, and then we have a green screen on the wall. We write a script as God leads us, and as he gives us tunes and songs that we write, and then when we have the script and songs ready, we invite children to come on a Saturday morning. We teach them the songs, and then we record it. Then I put backgrounds to them, and we send it off to our editor.
He's alive, he's alive. Jesus is alive. Let's jump and shout and sing. He's alive, he's alive. Jesus is alive.
And it all takes just one step, right? It's just one take and you're all done.
One wee little step. We've used that all the time. One wee little. I am totally, I don't know anything, I'm not technical.
Yeah.
So this whole thing has been a wee step learning for me.
I bet it has. And the videos are really catchy. Once you start watching them, the songs are all songs that you originate, right? These are songs that you write and you produce, and they're all your own, correct?
Yes, I really don't want to take credit because God has just given them. I know what I can do in my own strength.
Yeah.
But, our desire is to see God's truth really get into the lives of children.
I am the resurrection and I am the life. He who believes in me will live though he dies. I am the resurrection and the life.
That is Shamokin, Pennsylvania's Sandy Lenahan. This week's Hometown Hero. Her We Steps with God videos help make the Bible come alive for young people. Please join us again next week as we search for your home, your town, your hero. It's Hometown Heroes on Family Life. And Hometown Heroes comes your way Tuesdays during the Noon Report. You can subscribe to, listen to, and share this feature, as well as all our original podcasts at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or FamilyLife.org.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. Behind a cold front that crossed the area yesterday, a fresh batch of Arctic air is moving in, and the results, you're going to feel the chill and also have to deal with local lake snows if you're traveling across the region over the next couple of days. For this afternoon, across central and eastern Pennsylvania, clouds, occasional mixed sun, nothing more than a flurry. Elsewhere, considerable cloudiness, sunny breaks, flurries in areas of lake snow. Several inches of additional snow will accumulate in the lake belts east of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. High temperatures, mid-teens to mid-20s. Those lake snows will shift south a bit tonight and then back north and weaken tomorrow. Several more inches will accumulate in the lake belts. Elsewhere and otherwise, partly cloudy and cold. Low tonight dropping toward 10, the high tomorrow, low 20s. And Thursday, cloudy with a bit of snow and a high temperature in the 20s.
All right, Kevin, thank you. Finally at noon, it's a family thing in Corning, New York. 5 brothers, all from the same family, started in the same high school boys basketball game last night for Corning Christian Academy.
We've got Tyrus, who's age 17. Hey, Tyrus.
Hi.
Teddy is 16.
Hi.
Denton is 14.
Hi.
Garrig is 13.
Hi.
And Mickey is 11.
Hello.
Family Life, Sarah Harnish chatted up the Peters brothers just after their big game.
Denton plays the best out of the 5 of you guys, so Denton's 14. Tell me why.
Way more confidence than these guys on the court.
All right, we'll have to settle this outside.
I'm not. And I know I can make every shot.
Lots of confidence there. The Peters brothers say they've learned to lean on each other, just like they lean on their faith whenever they take the court.
We've had fights before, but work with each other, play together. Iron sharpens iron. In the Bible, it says a lot about being in fellowship with each other. When one of us makes a mistake, we're not bringing each other down. We're lifting each other up, and we're getting better because of it.
My brothers have to learn how to catch a pass.
All right.
Love that sibling rivalry. Whatever they did last night worked. Corning Christian Academy won the game, a double-digit win over the Port City Royals from Oswego. The Peters brothers from Corning, New York. What a great story. And that's our world. The world we live in, Tuesday, January 14th. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.